Hey everybody, welcome back to Homesteading Off the Grid. As you can tell, I just shaved, I fixed my hair, and I even put on a nice shirt, but I still look kind of rough. This is why. If you're not familiar with what these little test strips are, I'll just go ahead and throw it out there for you. My wife and I have both tested positive for COVID-19. We're both fully vaccinated, have been for some time, still got it. This is what is being referred to as breakthrough. I do believe from one of the variants, either Delta or Omicron. I'm not sure which one. This is a very sensitive subject, as it should be. It's highly likely that this video may be removed from YouTube. I'm willing to make it anyway because there's a particular message that I want to get across to those of you who take the time to watch my videos, because though I've never met you and I never will, I care about those of you who come to this channel and watch these videos, because it's only because of you that my family and I are able to live the life that we live. This is pretty much our gig. This is my job, so to say, though I love what I do, so it doesn't feel like I ever work a day in my life. I'm not a medical expert. I'm not a doctor. I don't work in the medical field to any degree. So I can't give you any sort of medical opinion. However, now that I have contracted the virus, and I've had it for about 5 days now, I can share with you my experience. You've probably heard it said, you can argue my opinion all you want, but you can't argue my experience. About a month or so ago, I got word that somebody who used to be a pretty good friend of mine, a guy I went to high school with, grew up with, had gotten COVID, and he's since died. He was the type of guy who just didn't really ever go to the doctor. I'm from Appalachia, and there's a lot of folks, not everybody, but there's a lot of folks who kind of view going to the doctor for any sort of medical treatment as a weakness. Well, it's not a weakness. This gentleman's story was that he had gotten COVID-19. Since he never went to the doctor, he had no clue that he also had other underlying health conditions, namely, according to the article his mother actually wrote that I read, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, and he was probably 80 pounds overweight, at least 80 pounds overweight. I grew up with this guy. We used to go fishing, camping, riding dirt bikes, ATVs, all these things together. Well, shortly after contracting COVID-19, he was hooked up on a ventilator. He spent 90 days in a hospital. They finally saw that he wasn't going to come around from it, took him off the ventilator, and shortly after, he passed away. He left behind, I believe, 2 children, still school age, preteens, and a wife. His mother and father are still alive, and you've probably heard it said that no parent should ever have to outlive their child. Well, his mother and father did. According to his mother, everybody else in the family was vaccinated, but he refused to get vaccinated. She pleaded with him to get vaccinated. He didn't really believe that the COVID-19 thing is all that they're saying it is. And when he contracted it, that was the end for him after a long 90-day period of being on a ventilator. Now, I don't tell you this story to shame this guy. He was a great guy. In all ways I can think of, he was a great guy. And I don't tell you this to shame his choices, his lifestyle, his belief system, his culture. I tell you this because I've never spoken about this issue before, because I've never had it. I was never qualified to speak on COVID, because anything I would say would merely be an opinion, okay? I can now speak from experience. I remember when the vaccine was first approved, it first came out, I didn't rush off to get it because the lines were long, and I knew I wasn't in the high-risk group. Today, I'm 48 years old. I'm very fit. I eat healthy. I eat a healthy diet. I don't smoke, no tobacco products. I don't use any illicit drugs. And I don't just exercise, I train. I'm a distance runner. And I used to compete, and after many years of just being a jogger, this year I decided to get back into competition, so I actually train, and there's a difference between exercising and training. And on top of all that, I live a very active lifestyle. I still cut, split, and stack my own firewood. I get out and play basketball with my 10-year-old son, go on nice long walks with my wife. And this is part of the story. This isn't, oh, look at my lifestyle versus his, that's why he's dead and I'm not. That is not the point of this story. The point of this story is to plead with many of you watching to maybe look at how you're living. We've been told this whole time that if you're over 50, particularly if you're over 60, and particularly if you have underlying health conditions, you are in the high-risk group. There are people watching this video right now who I know have not been to a doctor in eons. Please go get a checkup. You don't want, my friend was 48. He was 10 months older than me. 10 months older than me. He got it and he's gone. It doesn't have to happen that way. Now listen, I've got some facts here from the CDC. I'm going to read these to you in a minute, but I'm going to tell you my journey and my wife's journey this week of our experience with COVID. So, last weekend, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. This Monday, I get up at 5:30 in the morning, every morning. I get my wife up at 6. We get our son up at 6:30, get him ready for school, and a little bit after 7, he gets on the school bus. So this Monday, took him down to the school bus. He got on the school bus. He left. I went back into the house, and for the first time in the 5 years that we've lived here, and we moved here just before when our son had just started kindergarten, for the first time in 5 years, I went back to bed because I was so tired. And I couldn't understand why, because I'd gotten 8 hours of sleep the night before. But I was so weak. Usually what I do is after my son leaves for school, I go running. I'll run anywhere from 3 miles to 7.5 or 8 miles, depending upon what my workout regimen calls for. But I just didn't have the energy. So I went back to bed. I was asleep by 8 and I slept till 10:30. I got up. I was hungry. So I ate. And I thought, well, once my food settles, I'm going to go for a run. So I went back upstairs and I started reading. Next thing you know, I fell asleep reading. Woke up probably around 2 in the afternoon. So I slept for 3 hours. My son came home from school and I thought, well, I'll just run. It's a pretty afternoon. I'll run after he gets home. I just didn't have the energy. I couldn't explain it. I didn't know why. I was in bed that night by 8 o'clock. I usually go to bed between 9 and 10. And I was struggling to stay awake until 8. So I took 2 naps that day, long naps, and then went to bed very early that night. Woke up the next day, Tuesday, felt fine, felt great. After my son left for school, I went out and ran this 30-minute training course I do, and I actually broke my record for distance run for a 30-minute period on that course over this 6 or 8 month long training period comeback thing I've been doing. Felt great. But then my wife seemed as if she had a common cold. She was coming down with common cold symptoms. She had runny nose, sore throat, a cough, headache, body aches. So I said, okay, just take it easy. Don't do much of anything today. The next day, Wednesday, same thing. And I said to her, I said, honey, I think you might have COVID. And she's like, no, it's not COVID. I've just, been stressed. The stress is finally catching up with me. And I believe that stress really causes more, illness and damage to our bodies than people realize. Well, either that day or the next day, she got a text from, one of her friends who the previous weekend she had been in a car with for about an hour and a half one way. They went to a get together with some of their other friends to have a Christmas party. Bunch of ladies from the Philippines. My wife's from the Philippines. They've all met each other here in the area, and one of them was throwing a party. And then she came back the next day. They spent the night at their friend's house. Well, she got a text from this girl that this girl had just tested positive for COVID. So we're on to yesterday by now, and I said, honey, I think you've got COVID. We need to take you to get you tested. And I've been on the lookout for this because of, I want to make sure I pronounce it correctly, because of the Omicron variant, which allegedly was discovered in South Africa, that's now made its way worldwide, I guess. And the Delta variant has been out there before. And I've been hearing that even if you're fully vaccinated, like I and she are, you can still get these by way of a breakthrough. They call it breakthrough contraction. I guess the virus breaks through your immunity, the vaccination, all of your measures you have in place, and it gets to you anyway. So we called our primary care provider. Again, I am not a medical expert. I do not work in the medical field. And with something like this, I'm not going to try to guess. Listen, I believe science is real. And I say that at the risk, I know, of being lumped into the category of intellectual elitist leftists. I can assure you I am not. I am neither of those things. Okay? I have a bachelor's degree. I do believe in the value of education, the value of knowledge. But like one of my favorite writers, Mark Twain, used to say, I've never allowed my education to get in the way of my learning. I will attest the majority of the knowledge I possess has come from real world experiences. I've traveled the world. I've lived in multiple countries. Within multiple cultures, I've learned to speak multiple languages. Okay, I'm not tooting my own horn here, but what I'm saying is that anything I really feel I've truly learned that's worth knowing came from experience, not textbooks. And I'm certainly not a leftist. Like 80% of the majority of the people in the world, I'm a centrist. I'll lean a little left on certain issues and I'll lean a little right on others, but I'm right there in the middle. I tell you this to assure you I am not an intellectual elitist leftist. When I run into those people, it makes me want to throw up a little bit in my mouth. But I will tell you, science is real. And I'm not a scientist or a doctor. So I called my primary healthcare provider, okay? They told us of a place in town where we could go and get tested for free without an appointment. I called that place. They said, come on in, but be prepared to wait. There's 15 people in front of you. Call us when you're in the parking lot. Got down there. We're 30 minutes out of town. Called them, said, hey, we're here. Can my wife test? They said, sir, we're sorry, but there's like 30 people in front of you now. You need to call us back in 2 hours. So I didn't throw a temper tantrum and act like I'm more important than I'm not and tell them, by golly, you told me just to call. And I hear, come on, man. We're going through a pandemic right now. I know I'm not that important. I wish so many other people would realize this too. So I said, okay, 2 hours. How about we get one of these at-home self-test kits? They're out there. So we went to one of our local CVS branches. There's 3 or 4 in Charlottesville. We got the kit. Before we came home, now listen to this. This was yesterday. We hadn't had lunch. So I said, let's go get a pizza. Let's call out Domino's, get a pizza and get some hot wings. And my wife and son were with me. I said, you guys eat pizza and wings. And I wore my running gear into town. I said, I'm going to go for a run while you guys eat pizza and wings. And then when I get back from my run, you guys will be done eating and I'll just wait till I get home to eat because I don't like to eat immediately after I run. It would take me about half an hour to be ready to eat. And they were like, okay, that's great. So we parked at the practice fields at UVA down below the JAG school. And I know most of you have never been to Charlottesville. You don't know what I'm talking about. And I ran up to Scott Stadium where the UVA Cavaliers play football and back. Took me about 30 minutes. It's about a 4.5 mile run. Felt great. Hit a good stride there on the downhills. I've just recently recovered a hamstring injury that's 100% now and just felt great. So we come home. I gave my wife the test and she tested positive. Again, I think I put those things in my pockets. We used a test called Value or Quick View is what it was. And I'm not promoting that and I'm not being paid to promote it. I'm just telling you that's the test we used. And we followed the instructions to a T, and the positive comes out like this. You see a pink line and a blue line. If it would have been negative, it would have been just a blue line, I believe. And if it would have been a missed test, it would have been just a pink line. But when you get blue and pink, it means you're positive. And there's multiple forms of these at-home tests out there. So make sure to follow the instructions of the one you get should you go this route. So she tested positive. And so we, of course, contacted people that we've been in close contact with lately. people our son has been in close contact with lately. We had to cancel out on a birthday party our son was going to go to today. They couldn't go to basketball practice today. And we're staying in the house for 14 days. They say 10, but we're going to stay for 14 because that'll put us out until January 1. It's holidays, Christmas, New Year. There's no reason for us to go anywhere. And we had some friends and family coming down for New Year's, and we've had to contact them and say, look, don't come, because we don't want to give them this thing, okay, COVID. So we're being responsible. We are blessed in that we have real friends, the kind that aren't just there when times are good, the kinds that's there when times are bad. As a matter of fact, shout out to our friend Lori, because when Dearly called to let her know that our son Daniel wouldn't be going to her son Colton's birthday party, she said, let me know when you guys need, because she knows we're not going to be able to go 2 weeks without provisions. She says, tell me what you need, when you need it. I will leave it on your porch. I'll let you know when I'm coming, when I'm bringing it. And she will, because she's done that before. And we have half a dozen other friends easily. We have some new neighbors out here behind us that we've really hit it off with, that we know would do these things for us. So we're very blessed to have a strong support group who will enable us to be responsible and not have to go out there and get around others. And we're just not going to do that. Now, I'm going to read you some numbers, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about my experience and my view on this, because I have a message I've wanted to send for a long time since this pandemic started, but I haven't been able to because it was merely an opinion. And again, you could argue my opinion all day long, and my opinion, I know, is not any more valuable than anybody else's. But I know that if I have experience that you don't, that's worth more weight. Just like if you have certain experiences that I don't, that's worth more weight as well, okay? Today, I watched a video on YouTube because I want to know everything about these variants and this thing that my wife and I have as I can. And this comes from, when I got back from Iraq, I spent 6 months in the Army hospital out at Fort Lewis. I got hurt. I had to have surgery, go through rehab. I was in a battalion called the Warriors in Transition Battalion, and our first sergeant, wonderful woman, and she was also a patient in the battalion. Some of the best advice I'd ever gotten in my life, and while I was there especially, she said to all of us one morning in formation, she said, I challenge you to get to know your condition better than your care providers know your condition. She said, study it, research it. This way you'll know what questions to ask. You'll know when to ask them. Your gut will tell you when maybe you're being given inaccurate information by a healthcare provider. The best thing you can do is understand this thing inside and out. And I took her up on that, and I had a much more pleasurable experience during that 6 month stay in that hospital than I would have if I'd have been ignorant to my conditions. Okay, I actually saved myself from getting a surgery I didn't need because something seemed fishy based upon the information I'd garnered through my research, and I questioned and I questioned and I questioned, and I demanded a second opinion from a different doctor. And he's like, you're right, the other doctor was wrong. They were getting ready to cut you up when they didn't need to. So I learned through experience, this is pretty wise to do. So I watched this morning a video on YouTube called Why Are Vaccinated People Testing Positive for COVID? Because my wife and I are fully vaccinated, and I know the anti-vaxxers would be like, see there, I told you. They went and got that there vaccine. They went on and got that COVID anyway. Hey, and this video was on the Today Show's YouTube page. The channel was recorded December 13th, 2021. According to the CDC, and these were doctors on the show saying this, if you're not vaccinated, you're 6 times more likely to get COVID, okay? You're 29 times, if you're unvaccinated, according to the CDC, you are 29 times more likely to be hospitalized once you've contracted COVID. I have it, but I'm out here standing in my woods. If you are not vaccinated against COVID and you contract it, you are 14 times more likely to die than those who are vaccinated. So those are just numbers. Those are just facts. I believe science is real. I believe these numbers. How do I feel? You could tell I got a little bit of the sniffles. My eyes are a little bit red, a little bit bloodshot. Other than sleeping a lot on Monday, 2 naps, going to bed early, I feel, I've had colds that have made me feel worse. Again, yesterday, because after my wife tested positive, the reason I took the test was because I want to be responsible in regards to other people in my community. I said, you know what, honey? And the test kit came with 2 tests. I said, if you have it, it's likely that I might have it as well. I'm going to go ahead and test it so that I'll know I should stay away from other people as well. Came out positive. Less than an hour before I took that test, I ran 4 miles. The day before that, I cut and split and stacked firewood all day. And if I don't run out of daylight, after I make this video, I'm going to go cut, split, and stack some more firewood. Now, I'm not going to overdo it, but my point is, I believe from being vaccinated, I also believe from having a very healthy lifestyle, no illicit drugs, no tobacco products, well-rounded diet. I don't smoke cigarettes, of course, which is a tobacco product. And even more importantly than that, I believe from being fit. I'm barely being affected by this thing. My wife is having a little bit rougher go of it. She looks like she has a flu. And there's been times in the past when she's had the flu, when she's kind of looked like she does now. But my wife exercises. Now, she doesn't train. She exercises 2 or 3 days a week. She's from the Pacific Islands of the Philippines, so she doesn't do cold weather. In the summer through the fall, she is consistent, and she'll run or mountain bike or walk 5 or 6 days a week. And she had gotten up to where she could run for 45 minutes without stopping this fall. But when the weather set in, the cold weather set in, she kind of backed off on that. But she still exercises enough to where she's fit. I am cautiously optimistic that both of us are going to pull through this thing. I'm sure by next week, whatever, I won't even have to shave and fix my hair and put on a clean shirt to look good. I'll look okay in my rough and tumble flannels out here with my sawdust in my ears from sawing up the wood or whatever. I implore you. I know a lot of people have turned the vaccine into a political thing. It's like, I ain't getting that vaccine because science is real. Again, I am not an intellectual leftist. I'm no fan of those folks either, but science is real. And number 2, this is a question that I've never heard asked on any sort of large level since this pandemic started. And it's a question I've wanted to ask, but it's something that I didn't feel I had the right to ask until I myself contracted the virus, which I now have. That is, how am I living? How am I living? Look at our society. Look at how few people actually take the time to take care of themselves. They get fast food through the drive-thru on the way home from work because they've worked 10 hours a day and they don't have time to go home and cook, or they get home, they plop down in front of the TV because they're exhausted from work, and I get it, and the last thing they want to do is go out and jog 2 or 3 miles. Folks, I used to run to win state championships, which I've done. I used to run to win college conference championships, which I did at the team level, never as an individual. And at one point I was training for the Olympic marathon trials. I never made it, but that was a goal. I'm almost 50. There are no championships left for me to win. I'll probably never win another road race. Time and gravity has caught up to me. But I continue to run, and I do it now because I'm running for my life. Folks, if we get fit, if we get active, if we get up off the couch and we just go out and go for a walk, it only stands to benefit us. And when we have families, when we have children, we have people that we stand the risk of leaving behind when we're not fit, when we're not healthy, when we don't put our faith in. A little more than 100 years ago, there was a Spanish influenza. There are 3 little girls buried on the back of my property that died from that plague in 1918. Those folks would have jumped up and down at the opportunity to get a vaccine against that. We have that opportunity today because of the evolution and the advancements of technology and medicine, science, and understanding. Folks, we're living in the best times in which we could have ever lived. But we've got to get out there and do our part in being responsible and take advantage of these advancements. We've got to get up off the couch, lace up our shoes, and go out. If we don't want to run, fine, go for a walk. But we've got to do something. We've got to keep moving. Our lives do depend upon it. So stay healthy out there, folks. Follow the guidelines, the CDC recommended guidelines. Trust me, those folks know more than those of us who aren't doctors and scientists. See you for more next time.